If you'd like to make this thin pullover in a size that is not available in the pattern, uh, for instance, in the pattern, the biggest size for kids is 6-year-old, which is about 25 inches around chest, and the sweater's finished measurement is about 27 inches. Um, so if you would like to make it, say, for a 10-year-old or 8-year-old, you can base it on the size that's closest. So, 6-year-old is where I would base my adjustments. And I wouldn't worry about the neck because a 6-year-old head is not that different from an 8 or 10-year-old head size. So the neck should still fit all right. I would start with measuring your child's chest, and then decide how much positive ease you'd like to have in the sweater. 3 inches, 4 inches, maybe 2 inches. Another way to go is maybe pick a sweater that your child likes or you like how it fits, and measure the chest on that sweater. To do that, you just go from underarm from one side to the other. So I got 11.5 inches, and you double it because we're looking at a circumference, right? So that will be 23 inches. And that is your measurement to work with. I would take that number, multiply it by the stitch gauge, which is 3.88, the recommended gauge, and see how many increases you need to make. Now let's suppose that you have a 10-year-old, and your child's chest is 28 inches, and you decide to have 2 inches of positive ease, so your chest will be 30, the finished measurement for the chest will be 30 inches. Now what you need to do is multiply 30 by 3.88. This is your chest circumference and this is your stitch gauge, and that will give you the total number of stitches. I can tell it will be around 120, a little less than that. So it's 116. I would compare it with the numbers you get for the biggest kid's size and see how many increases you need to make. I would make sure that the number of increases, the number that I get, is divisible by 4, because remember we talked about how in a raglan we got sleeves here and we got the chest, the front and back, and we, in each increase round, we increase 4 stitches, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Work that out, see how many increased rounds you get. After that, double check that your increases in your sleeves are not gonna create an out of proportion sleeve. To do that, again, look at the upper arm circumference for the size you're basing it on, in this case 6-year-olds, and add the number of increases, the increase rounds multiplied by 2, because you'll be increasing by 2 stitches per increase round, and see what number you get and whether you like that upper arm. That's about it. For the sleeves, you probably will want to work at a rate that's a little bit bigger, so that you have it spread out a bit more. So for instance, if the size you're basing your sweater on is it decreases at the rate of every fourth round or so. Maybe you will do it every fifth round or every sixth round, just so that they're a bit more spread out, and you won't end up with a very tight wrist. Another thing to remember is, because you're changing the sizes and stuff, you want to double check that when you start the elbow patch motif. By the way, you can work the elbow patch motif for that size. In our case, we're basing it on 6-year-old size, so I would still use the 6-year-old size as elbow patch motif, but the placement will probably change, and for that you will need to try the sweater on as you go, and see where you want to start it as you try it. For instance, for the adjusted sweater pattern for my husband, I started the elbow patch 1 inch sooner than the pattern called for, because when I tried it on, it looked like it would look better if I started it an inch earlier. So that's what you can do. The number of stitches that you have to start the elbow patch motif, you know, it won't change, as in our example for a 10-year-old based on the 6-year-old pattern. Because your sleeve will be wider, maybe you'll want the elbow patch to be moved a little bit this way, and all you have to do is, if it says place the marker for elbow patch after 5 stitches from beginning of round, you may want to do it after 7. Yeah, so work your sleeves to the length that you'd like. Just remember that they're about 1.5 inches or 2 inches, depending on how long you want the cuff to be. There's that length there while you try the sweater on your child. Also, with the body, same idea. Work to the measurement that you like, and just remember that you still have the hem, depending on how wide you'd like the hem to be. Make sure you factor that number in as you're working the body measurement. While you're working the sweater, it may seem like this area puckers a little bit. Just that's because of the short rows that are there. Don't worry about them. When you wash and block, they'll go away. You just need to make sure after you wash, you stretch this area a bit nicely and firmly, and dry it like that, and then it will look just fine.